Hello and welcome to Martini's Eco and Country Bites. I'm in the studio today and more than a wee bit excited. Many people know that we have a huge symposium coming up tomorrow evening, and our keynote speaker, the one, the only, Meghan Lapp, is here from the USA. Hello, Meghan.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. I couldn't contain my excitement the other night when I greeted Meghan off the plane. How was that flight?
Really long.
Now you know why a lot of people just really balk a little bit when they come to Australia.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, I'd love to go there, but I couldn't do the flight.
Yeah. We often recommend a stopover either in Dubai or Hawaii on the other way. That's definitely a definite way to go. Look, today we're having a chat, obviously, about Meghan's experience, probably what it's been like in her arrival to Australia. You've never been here before, right?
Nope.
Wow. So her arrival, her experiences so far, and some of the things that we've had a chat about to do with the offshore wind, as well as other things that are coming up that are definitely in the spotlight as far as news and that at the moment. So how's it been for you? What's your experience like for Australia?
I got to hold a baby koala yesterday, so like my life is complete. And I got to pet a kangaroo
And a kangaroo.
and a wallaby,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like so great. There's parrots flying around, like that's like totally surreal. For those of you who live in Australia, you have to understand, like, we don't have parrots, we have sparrows and things like that. So
Pigeons.
yeah, so I'm walking around like, that's a parrot. That's another parrot. So cool.
They're everywhere. We do have, and that's the thing, is that we take for granted biodiversity, huge range of biodiversity on land and in our oceans, which is absolutely part of the reason why you're here, to help us protect that by sharing your story. I think that some of your experiences are starting to lay down the foundation of what is to come in the coming days and weeks or so for you in your experience here in WA. What is your vibe so far about how you're seeing, like, maybe the climate in Australia as far as where we're going with not only renewables but other things that you've observed? What's kind of something that's hit you that's been like, oh, I didn't know that, or what was that? Have you had anything like that?
I think it's very, very similar to other places that have been pursuing renewables at all costs. Just kind of throw any kind of sense or caution to the wind and just go ahead and build and find out what happens later. But obviously there's always the undercurrent of who's making money off of it, who are making the political deals, which are making the money off of it. And that's always really, if you follow the money, you will know what is happening. And that's ultimately, whether it's the US or Australia or anything like that, that's really where it's at.
Yeah, I agree. And precautionary principle is the one thing that we've said from the beginning has been thrown out the window. And more than anything, I think that, again, like you've just pointed out, having fresh eyes and looking at Australia and saying, like, the variety of birds that we have, even the species of fish, we have a huge diverse range of endemic fish. We went through that yesterday, didn't we? Okay, so
we did.
I do make a pretty mean taco from fish tacos. They're kind of my speciality. So that's kind of going on the menu in the next week or so. So we wanted to have a chat about what kind of fish we have. And so I got out the chat, and you were like super impressed about the types of range of snapper that we have here in Western Australia.
Yeah. Yep.
Amazing, right? So, and this is the thing that gets taken for granted when you're in the fishbowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you step out of it and you look at it with new eyes. So I think that probably the feedback that you were giving me was reinforcement of even more reason why we need to fight for what we have here.
Yeah. And one of the things that I still cannot wrap my head around, like still blows my mind, is the fact that where you are talking about having offshore wind here in Western Australia is on a limestone coral reef.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
you can't build on a coral reef. That's like environmentalism 101. Yeah. Like, I don't care what country you're in, you don't get to build on coral reefs. That's like not a thing. And so when you told me that shocked me. It shocked me, especially that a country like Australia that is so heavy in like ecotourism because of your coral reefs and because of the waters that you have, would actually industrialize that and turn it into a power plant
A really
like I
crappy one at that too.
Right. I can't get my head around that. But it was kind of like we've discussed in the past where you had mentioned places where they culled koalas to put in a wind farm.
Yeah.
And again, as you know, an American, like, you know, I couldn't believe that. I was like, wait, what?
Killed, yeah.
Aren't we supposed to be protecting the koalas? Aren't there like funds to protect the koalas and things like this? And the fact that that would be allowed, you know, by the governing authorities was mind-blowing to me.
The fact that the Minister for Environment, Tanya Plibersek at the time, allowed that to happen and must have signed off on that, gave instructions of how to do that, that breaks Australians' hearts. So this is where the government no longer is really representing us, the people. And this is what's really disheartening and breaks our hearts on a ground level community base, because all those communities over there did not want it. They didn't want that to happen.
Right.
We have been trying to preserve these beautiful habitats, these beautiful animals that we value, but somehow they're no longer valued, and it's okay to go and kill protected species because of these so-called green renewables, because we signed off on something that, again, that the people didn't even know what they were signing up on. Yeah?
Right.
There's no disclosure or consent. You can't really consent to something when you don't know the details.
Right. Right.
And I think in the details in this one for sure.
Always, always. And I think, you know, especially in Australia, one of the things, you know, that I had been thinking about before I came here and have thought about since I have been here is just the uniqueness. Australia has all the things that don't exist in other places.
Yeah.
No other place has like koalas or like kangaroos or wallabies or all these kinds of very cool
Unique
things, right? Like everything here is extremely unique. That's why, like, when you come here on a plane from some other place, you know, the customs people are very thorough and they're very, very serious about you cannot bring anything here. No food, no water. They made us all like empty our water bottles before getting on the plane to come to Australia, even though we filled the water bottles up in the airport past security, but they were still like, no, you can't have that. Yeah. So
we don't want anything killing anything because we're going to try and get rid of it first. So we don't have to worry about it.
Well, like there's justifiably so, like almost precaution to the extreme to not bring in things that could damage the wildlife and the ecosystems of Australia because it is so unique on the one hand, yet on the other hand, there's just wholesale ocean destruction that's being approved, you know, on some of your nation's most precious resources. Like that doesn't equate. You know, so then obviously the question becomes like, who's making money and how? You know,
well, it's not Aussies. We know that.
No, in the United States, it wasn't U.S. citizens. I mean, there were obviously politicians in the States that did deals for
imagine that,
you know, approvals and things like that. But in the United States, what would happen is that the wind company would get an investable tax credit equal to 30% of the capital cost of the project itself. So if the offshore wind project was $3 billion to build, they got an investable tax credit of $1 billion. And the companies that were building these are owned by the government of Denmark, the government of Norway, or they were like pension farms or pension funds, for Denmark, right? So what they were doing is taking our US tax dollars and using it to fund their government pensions in foreign countries while they put us out of business, you know, while they're trying to put us and fisheries out of business in our own country. So like they were here to knock us out in our own country, take our money and then invest in their own pensions in their own country. And obviously this is a financial shell game. And there were politicians who were willing to support that in exchange for who knows what. But I'm sure many of them were also, you know, getting rich on the side. So
on the take.
That's you know, that's the nature of politics. Who contributed to whose campaign contributions, right? And that stuff in the United States anyway, you can find that stuff out. You know, but these companies have been spending, you know, millions on, you know, lobbyists, campaign contributions, and, you know, Denmark and Norway, they have ambassadors in the US all the time. They have ambassadors that live in Washington,
we
DC.
have a great ambassador in the Danish. Her name's Mary, but she forgot she was Australian, so she doesn't care about our oceans anymore now that Mary's gone off there. So she's fully Danish, and there's no sentiment, obviously, to Australia, because I'm sure that she'd be a great representative to say that maybe our Aussie waters and taxpayers don't want to fund and subsidize this failing intermittent system, because at this point we are getting to the pointy end of things. Let's go back a little bit to what you said about your fisheries. So in the last couple of weeks, we had a bit of a chat about this. There is a lot of dialogue, and I want Peter tune in right here, right now. So if you fish, fishermen, there is a whole divisive language that I see and a whole scenario being played out. There's one scenario in the wreck fishing where they're being told that the fish stocks are not sustainable. This is what's coming out of WA dialogue now, which is absolute and utter garbage, because I see statistics, I see footage, I see numbers from fishermen all up and down the coastline, and they're saying numbers are great, stocks are really replenished. Pretty much so many fish species have fully recovered because we have very, very strict take numbers, bag numbers for boats, like everything to do with that, right? So we have really, really sustainable practices. They're telling us, so they've started with the wreck fishing. They're going to take away wreck fishing in areas because they're saying, there's not enough fish. Wreck fishermen are like, what? That's not true. It's like, you're right. It's not true. Keep pushing back. But it's certainly not a scenario where they're setting up the wreck fishing to have that take away from them, so that when they take away commercial fishing, of course, no one's going to push back, because it's like, well, wreck fishing got taken away, right? Wreck fishermen has to lose their capacity to go and put their lines in and feed their families. So sure, let's take away the capacity for commercial fishing. Is this a scenario? This is what's happening right now, this dialogue. So Western Australian Fishing Industry Council, go find their number and give them a call and look at the number that comes up, because it says Aquaculture Council of Western Australia. And if you know what aquaculture is, that's not wild stock. No. That's not looking after the industries that are here now, the wetliners, the demersal fishing, the WA rock lobster industry. These are very strong fishing communities and fishing industries. And I am calling it out now for the lies and the manipulation that are going on. Did you see something very similar like that happening in the East Coast of the USA? Did you see it in other nations as well? That same kind of tactics?
Well, in the US, we have a lot of environmental groups that are part of the environmental industry, who are continually trying to put commercial fisheries out of business. That's, a lot of, yes. And they attend our fisheries management council meetings. They lobby against us, all that. So they've been trying to shut down commercial fisheries for many years. That's nothing new.
Yes.
And they have actually tried to cause division between the commercial and recreational fisheries in the US by essentially, trying to get the recreational fisheries to side with them under the premise of, you push commercial out, you get more fish.
You're listening, people.
Right? So there's been an attempt to divide and conquer, essentially. But what I have seen in offshore wind is that at the beginning, the offshore wind companies, the government, and other, lobby groups would tell the recreational fishermen, well, look, the wind farms are going to put the commercial guys out, so you guys are going to do better. You'll have the ocean to yourself. And then also that the structure was going to be good for the fish, right?
Yeah.
And so all of this is going to be great. All of this is going to be great. It's going to be really good for you. So at the beginning, there were, some recreational fishermen who did kind of jump on that bandwagon. However, more and more and more, the recreational fishermen, are realizing this is going to be really, really bad. It's going to destroy our stocks. It's going to destroy the ocean. And they're actually seeing it now in real time with some of the projects that are under construction. And so, really now more and more, the recreational and the commercial fisheries are very aligned on this issue. There are rec guys who are pushing against it. And they're saying, hey, this is going to impact us too. And this is going to be really bad. And we have to be a united front to address this. And so it is becoming more and more of a united effort. And that's important because, again, if you can divide and conquer, you can conquer, right?
Correct.
You need people united. And like I said, we have 5 projects under construction right now on the East Coast of the United States, and recreational fishermen have seen impacts as well. I know one guy who does charters, and has been in one of the project areas. He said the whole thing is dead. He said everything in there is dead.
What area is that, Megan?
Vineyard Wind. He said in Vineyard Wind, you know, he has fished there.
I hope people are really listening to this.
It's a dead zone, he said. He said there's nothing there. I mean, they've pile driven. Now they've turned some stuff on. And, you know, I think a lot of people were misled with the whole, oh, it'll you know, create this structure that will attract fish,
habitat that replace what's already there.
But let me tell you something. When you flip them on and there's electricity flowing through those cables, that's a problem. At the Block Island Wind Farm, we used to have very predictable fish migration patterns, and they used to migrate across the cable area. Once they turned it on, fish wouldn't cross the cable, and people don't fish there anymore. The lobster guys don't fish there anymore. The gillnet guys don't fish there anymore. Like, it has been, the codfish all left. They don't like the noise. There's a lot of, you know, knock-on effects, and yeah, it's not what it's billed to be. And of course, you know, in the development process, the recreational fishing community was lied to by the developers and the government to try to get their support because they wanted support. And, you know, there were some guys who kicked back hard, and now more and more are kicking back hard because they actually see the destruction themselves. Yeah.
So the thing is, there's two factors here also. It's not the immediate destruction that's happening by the actual installation and the operation of the wind turbines and the high voltage underwater cables. That's not one. It's spatial disbursement of licenses. So this is where commercial fishing is going to be locked out, and this is where rec fishing is both going to be locked out. You are going to have to pay premium dollar to put a line in anywhere in Australia by the way they're going. And that's what they want. They've tried to destroy the sheep industry by getting rid of the sheep exportation. And once they get rid of that and they devalue everything about lamb, everything about wool, exportation, they're going for the cattle. Now they're coming for sustainable fisheries. And I've been saying this to people for a very, very long time, that the fishermen and the farmers need to get together and start having these conversations, because it's the same tactics being played against you. So what it is that you're going to be locked out by marine parks. And Pew has done a very good job at lobbying. They've created a horrific marine park that has locked everyone out along the southern coast. That was an area of great biodiversity as well as sustainability. And the thing is that the population down there is actually really small compared to the area. So the impact from locals that would go and throw in their line or put their boat in, and now they can't do it. It's a marine park that goes from the South Australian state line all the way around to Albany. So like, we're talking about a huge area here. They're trying to extend it all the way around. So they're going to lock us out with marine parks, and then they're going to put wind turbine zones in. So they're going to be exclusion zones for all of these things. And it's not going to be safe. So they're going to have these buffer zones, and they're going, well, there's not enough fish because the fish stocks are at risk. But it's not the fish stocks that are declining now, but they're putting that divisive language, that premeditative language here to say that the stocks are already down, which is a lie. But what's going to happen is, once marine surveys start in Geograph Bay and all along the coastline here, Dongara, Landsland, Jurien Bay, they're going to go the whole way up and keep doing this if we don't stop them. When that happens, then we'll see massive declines, like you said. They're going to have what they call sea deserts. So there's areas out there, like you said, that they're total dead zones. And people are like, oh, that's not true. It's like, you want to come and ask this lady in person, come and see us at the symposium. I cannot tell you enough. I have been reaching out to fishing communities and rec fishing pages, got heavily trolled. Thanks very much. So I must be right over the target. All I can say is that we are not trying to lock out fishermen. We are not trying to stop this industry. We are trying to support you so that we can retain our value system, our communities, our lifestyle, and stop foreign corporations from coming in, destroying and sucking us dry with subsidies, because that's the only way that this exists. And, you know, your subsidy way it was set up is different to ours. And this is where people need to understand that Mr. Bowen has sold out our oceans, and Mr. Watt, the Environment Minister, who should have declared the area of Geograph Bay a recognised habitat of critical significance, because it's a whale birthing zone. Have you ever heard of a whale birthing zone having an offshore wind turbine right in the middle of it, Megan?
Well, they were citing leases in ours.
Wow.
So, I mean, you know, and for other uses to go in there, you know, plus all the protections that the commercial fishing industry has for whales. I mean, nobody would ever be allowed to do anything like that. Like, that's crazy talk, right? But for offshore wind
Outraged.
stuff, it's like none of the rules apply.
Yeah.
Literally none of the rules apply.
Make them up as they go.
And you know what's interesting, Martine, when you were talking about the marine parks and, you know, combined with the wind farms and things like that, there was a study done in the UK. I want to say it was 2022, called Spatial Squeeze.
Yeah.
And they actually estimated that if the wind projects and if the marine parks continue to go the way that they are going, by 2050, they will have no commercial fisheries in the UK. It'll be over. So, you know, you have to,
you know what, people are going to sit there and go, oh, but that's never going to happen in Australia. It's like, you want to bet?
well, the same agenda is playing out everywhere. And so
Yeah.
I think that people need to learn from that. And, you know, quite frankly, it's like, hey, look, you can't eat electricity, right?
Yeah.
You can't eat electricity.
Yeah.
And so, you know, are you willing to destroy food sources for electricity? That should not be the case. And, you know, where we are, you know, we've had sustainable fisheries for hundreds of years. And I
Yeah.
tell people, you know, we can have them because we have, you know, very strict and sustainable practices.
Mhm.
We will be able to harvest for hundreds of years more if we're allowed. But if, you know, if people and the government specifically, if the government is willing to sacrifice hundreds of years of sustainable food production for a 20-year project, like, we have a problem.
And it's generational fishing.
Absolutely.
Strong families, strong communities, and this is what they're doing. They're getting rid of generational fishing, generational
Mhm.
farming. Same.
And it's
like
a food source.
sustainable fish.
It's a
stocks.
food source. During COVID, when, you know, people couldn't find protein on the shelves of their supermarket, down in Point Judith, Rhode Island, where I operate out of, we had people lined up going to get lobsters off of boats,
Uh-huh.
going to get fish in the local fish markets, because guess what? We were producing.
Yeah.
And, you know, having supplies of local food is really important. Again, you can't
Food
eat
security,
electricity.
it's called.
You can live without electricity. You cannot live without food. So you have to prioritize what is the most important thing. You need food, you need water, you need shelter, you need clothing. And so if, you know, you don't need electricity, yes, it makes everything a lot better. You know, but there's many, many sources of electricity. And why would you destroy food sources, which is something that you literally cannot live without, for a project that's supposed to be an electricity project that doesn't even work? Like, it's the risk reward, you know, is not there. Obviously, the cost benefit is not there. But again, it's not about the wind project. It is about the subsidies. They do not work without subsidies. Correct. And in the UK, where they pulled the subsidies, in Denmark a couple years ago, where they pulled the subsidies, they had no bids because they can't make the economics work. The numbers do not work. And they don't even care if it produces electricity. This is something that was like really funny, which hopefully we get a chance to talk about tomorrow. But
I'll pen it down. Yeah.
Yes. But I remember being on a webinar one time for NYSERDA, which is the New York State New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. Okay. And so they're basically the energy agency for the state of New York. Okay. So they want to take like the whole ocean to make wind farms to power New York, quote unquote, which they don't even need the power, but whatever. So this was their plan, right? So they'd have these webinars and stuff, and I would attend them, and I was watching, and it was the procurement process for NYSERDA to get projects to bid for, you know, for contracts with projects, right? And see who is going to get the offshore renewable energy credit, which is basically like a commodity that they trade.
Yeah.
So, and it was funny because they had, well, here's the criteria of how we're going to select the project. Okay. And there were 10 things. Okay, 10 things in like order of importance of this is how we're going to make our decision. There was all like, you know, the subsidies and the credits and this, that, and the other thing, right? So number 10, the bottom, was project viability. Okay, so that was the least important thing, project viability. So then they broke down all those 10 criteria. And when they got to project viability and they broke down what project viability meant, the very last part of that was wind resource.
The last part was
Right.
wind resource.
So basically, it doesn't matter if the wind blows, and it doesn't matter if it works, right? Like, it doesn't matter if the project is viable. It's a money shell game, and that is all that matters.
Ponzi scheme.
It is a Ponzi scheme. And that's also the thing, is that because these projects don't work, right? But the companies get a shot of cash in the arm when they build.
Yeah.
They have to, what they do is their business plan is build a project.
Yeah.
They get all the subsidies, get all the money. Then they sell it, or they partially sell it off to the utility or to whoever, or to China or somebody else, right?
Yeah.
They sell it off. They farm down. That's what it's called, a farm down. And then they build again. They have to continually be building. They can't just build and hold the asset, because the asset is worthless.
So
the money is in the building, because that's when you get the subsidy.
And this is where you can write there the longevity, the amount of money, energy that's put into even create this, and what the outcome in, that's where the cost benefit. It's not sustainable.
No.
Like, we have to look at baseload energy that's sustainable,
Right.
that's economic, that's affordable, that we can actually bring our prices down and not keep increasing everything. Because if anyone has started to wake up right now, you're going to be starting to question why it is just when you start getting ahead, or the goals change. And it's like you're never going to get ahead because they keep changing the goalposts. And that's because people don't push back, because they can't, like, oh, let's just, everything keeps increasing. No, because you allow it to. Instead of going, no, we demand cheaper electricity. We demand baseload energy, because the thing is that without baseload energy, we can't have heavy industry. Right. We cannot. It doesn't exist. You can't have manufacturing that's like going to use heavy duty baseload power. Look what's going on. So Tomago, oh wow, this is a topic. We probably just got pinged there. Tomago is a smelter over on the East Coast. They were promised all of this green energy and blah, blah, blah. Well, they're shutting down the coal power station. So there's an end date. They're shutting it down, but then there's no this green renewables energy that's coming in to replace it. They're essentially going to completely sabotage a whole industry of manufacturing because of this green pipe dream.
Well, I mean, like, look at what happened in Germany, right? So you see the Germans, and they decided they were going to do Energiewende and like go to green, quote unquote, energy, right? So, okay, so they start shutting down coal plants and they start building wind farms.
Yep.
Right? Their electricity costs have skyrocketed so much that VW may actually shut down a plant for the first time in its history in Germany, because they cannot afford the electricity costs. That was listed as one of the main issues, that they they just can't afford to manufacture. So it's the deindustrialization of the country. I mean, Germany is full of great engineering. Yeah. They make great cars. They make great stuff, right? Like,
you got to give
they're very on point with that stuff. But now they're actually talking about deindustrializing their country because they cannot afford the electricity, because they've gotten rid of the coal plants. They keep getting rid of them. And then they were starting to go, at one point they declared that natural gas was a green energy source. So then they were getting Russian natural gas. And I remember during the first Trump administration, Donald Trump said, he was like, you guys are very stupid if you think, if you're going to base like everything on getting natural gas from Russia, what happens if Russia does something? You guys are in a very tough place.
Cut you off.
Right? So then fast forward, there's the war with Ukraine, and all of a sudden they're cut off. So then Germany is now in a very tough place. I remember seeing an article, and it was so funny. They were having to fire up coal plants again, and they were taking down some onshore wind turbines to dig to get to the coal underneath them, because they needed the coal underneath them to produce real power. So it's like this, it doesn't work.
So let's go back. They were decommissioning and taking down the land-based wind turbines.
Yes,
because the coal underneath is what they needed for base
to actually power the country. Yes,
and so they also bought up a whole bunch of land in India to then go and bury all of that stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. That's nice. They won't bury it in their own country. They'll do it in India.
It's such a shame that they can't find. Well, there's too much coal there to dig out. They haven't got any space. I'm sorry.
It's
the absurdity of this.
The absurdity.
Have we woken up yet, Australia?
Yes.
Can we wake up now?
It is absurd.
We have
is
some of the best coal in the world, and we ship it all to China. So we have coal mines. Like WA has some of the best coal mines here. So they're
Really?
like, oh, it's not that great and whatever. It's like, actually, there's nothing wrong with it. There's adjustments that need to be made to the coal mines, to the power stations to reduce emissions. And I think there's always a way to improve and that we can always do better. This garbage, this Ponzi scheme is the last thing we should be doing because we are causing direct environmental harm, habitat loss, biodiversity loss. This is the last thing. That's not what we want. What we need to do is go back to the drawing board, look at what our baseload energy is, what we have, because right next to the coal mine is where the coal fields are. So they hop on a conveyor belt or they're shipped, trucked in. They're right there, straight to the power. So it's like, that's not like they have to use a lot of fossil fuels to get that out. But okay, let's not talk about the fossil fuels into the manufacturing of these things, bringing them over from China, bringing all the ships over from wherever they've got to come from, Asia and everyone else. And the installation, $1 million a day minimum for the installation ships and vessels.
Yeah. And I mean, don't forget, like China's building a new coal plant once every 2 weeks. Like they're churning them out because they're building stuff, right?
And we give away our gas to Japan.
It's like
so
any kind of alleged, which it doesn't even reduce emissions anyway, but even pretend if it did, like China's outpacing anyway, like it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't actually matter, but it doesn't, I think that's also though a real misconception, a myth that people believe because they're told it all the time. They're like, this is going to replace fossil fuels and it's going to reduce emissions. It does neither.
Never.
It does neither because since it doesn't work and it's only producing power, 35 to 40% of the time,
Maximum.
60 to 65% of the time, you have to produce power with fossil fuels. And so you have to have the fossil fuel plant on 100% of the time because wind is unpredictable. So when the wind drops out, you can ramp up the fossil fuel electricity production so that you don't have blackouts.
Yeah.
And so all you're doing is paying 2 electric bills and you're not ever getting off of fossil fuel electricity. So it's such a myth. People think, oh, look, but if we do this, we can get off of fossil fuels. No, you can't.
No, you can't.
And so people have to start.
That is the bold-faced lie that people have been told.
It is a lie. And what's funny too is like sometimes, and this is the whole shell game too, with the offshore renewable energy credits and things like that. Like if you build a plant, right, now you have these credits.
Yeah.
Now you sell them. So you sell them to that guy over there who still has a coal plant and he's burning coal. But now because you sold him the credit, it cancels it out. So then it's like a pretend game, right? So you've given them a credit.
You've
given them a credit. So it's like, oh, well, now you're neutral. Now you're CO2 neutral, even though the guy's still burning coal. It's not any different. He just bought a credit, right? So it doesn't mean you're getting rid of stuff. Now you're just building these things and selling the credits to like fossil fuel plants. So again, it's a pretend thing. But unfortunately, most people don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's astonishing to me, even where I live, how little people are actually aware of what's going on. And so for years, as these projects off of the coast of Rhode Island were getting permitted, even starting construction, all this kind of stuff, I would talk to people.
Yeah.
And if you mentioned offshore wind farms, they thought you were talking about the 5 Block Island turbines.
Yeah.
Which was like a state in-state waters project, not a federal project. There's only 5 turbines. And for years, like that's what people would think that you were talking about. I was like, no, there's like hundreds, potentially thousands of turbines scheduled to be built south of here. That's what I'm talking about. And people were so uninformed and they didn't know. And now you can see them. Now they are constructing. Now we've got a bunch of them. That now people can't, now I'm sure there's a lot of people going, oh, look, what's that? Well,
so we have the same kind of cloak and dagger, smoke and mirrors kind of game going on here, because what was happening is all the proponents that dropped out of the Bunbury offshore project were being named. It's like, oh, they've dropped out. Oh, they've been dropped out. And then that was like outrage from, oh my God, but we need it. We need it. It's like, yeah, no, we don't. People all over, even in the area that it's being built, still don't even know there's 266 offshore wind turbines scheduled to be put in the Bunbury offshore zone that live in that area, that live along that coastline. Still don't know. Because there's so much misinformation being put out there. And we put in the missing information, which is telling the truth, giving people platforms to talk about what the facts, the reality is, what the science, the data is showing. We are out there so hard all day, every day, trying to educate people. And we hit walls because, I don't know, what was the mainstream media doing over there with you? Were they supportive of this at the time?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No. And especially like in our state, the university is co-opted, all the, a lot of state stuff is co-opted. Everything is always, promoting wind. Although I will say we do have some good local TV stations. Shout out to Channel 10. They're really good. And they would always be very, very balanced and allow me to speak and report well.
Good.
But our politicians, we're all always speaking positively, never about the facts of the projects, never about, the negative impacts of the commercial fishing industry, which really is a major powerhouse in the state of Rhode Island. And so, general mainstream media was always very, very supportive of it.
Yeah.
We did have Fox News, Fox Business, Newsmax, folks like that who would report on it. But, early on, it was difficult to even get traction there because most people were just unaware that it was even an issue, right? Now there's a lot more reporting, especially because, thank God for President Trump, who is very vocal about this issue, and he is acting on this issue. And if it wasn't for him, we would, the East Coast would be completely destroyed.
Oh, he's having an impact for us as well. You know that because he's destabilizing the whole industry. The fact that Ørsted is like rocky as and they're getting propped up by Equinor.
Right. Well, I just saw Ørsted, a friend of mine who lives overseas had sent me something this morning, actually, that said Ørsted has now announced that they're not building offshore wind projects outside of Europe now. And I was like, good, get out of my country.
And get out of Australia. Don't come back. Don't even look sideways at us again. So we've got a Spanish company, a bit of a French company, a bit of a this and that to deal with down in the Bunbury offshore region. We're going to start highlighting that because, again, these are other nations' electrical system, like their national electricity. It's like Western Power going over to, I don't know, Singapore, going over to Malaysia and saying, oh, we're going to put wind turbines in your oceans. We're going to destroy your communities, ecosystems. We're going to destroy your ecotourism, like devalue everything that's sacred to you and then take all the money back here. It's like, what? It's like, I'd be ashamed if Australia was doing that. I mean, if I'm sure that we are certainly not clean in any of this as far as some of that goes, but I am appalled to think that we have sold out our oceans and our communities because even though it's very different, like obviously you're seeing the geography, Australia is quite different to the US and it's predominantly a Mediterranean like climate zone here, and then going north it gets semi-arid but then subtropical. So this is why we have such a disbursement of different species and a variety. All I can say is that our communities need to learn from the mistakes of other nations. If we do not, and we sit on our laurels and let this continuing steamrolling happening by Mr. Bowen and Mr. Watt and the offshore regulators and anyone who's just writing the rules as they go, which is what they're doing. They're just making it up as they go. Because when you ask questions,
that's what they did with us. They made it up as they went.
We have communities that are entirely based and exist because it's a fishing community.
Yes.
Rock lobster, demersal, wetliners, all of this. And it's the same for ecotourism. If we lose that natural intrinsic beauty and the pristine beaches our waters go, I'm telling you now, people have no idea the cascade effect. What's been happening? Because I've heard there are places, especially in Nantucket, from my friend there, as well, that people have started selling properties along these areas because they don't want to live near it. It's disgusting to look at them, the influence of the infrasound, the effects from them. What's happening over there as far as the impact right there of that?
Well, a friend of mine is a real estate developer on Martha's Vineyard, which is right next to Nantucket. And she's already told me that billionaires with a B are selling their houses because they can see the Vineyard Wind project. And so
real estate agents, listen up.
They're selling. And so I think, you know, that's really important. I know that Ocean City, Maryland has sued on the project that was scheduled for off of their coast. And they have entire, you know, associations, real estate associations, hotel associations, things like that are saying you're going to devalue all of our real estate, all of our hotel, all of like the people that come there to come see the ocean, be at the ocean, go to the beach, all that. And they were like, you're going to destroy our local economy. The whole city sued with a whole laundry list of associations and groups on it, and individuals as well, commercial fishing and otherwise. But I think, yeah, no, there are for sure definite impacts from that. And yeah, I think what's also really important for people to grasp is that you actually have to do something.
Yeah.
When I will say this, Americans are very different from Europeans in the sense of don't mess with us, right?
Mm-hmm. Aussies used to be that way.
I remember there was a wind developer rep that came over one time and you know, he was kind of like introducing himself to me, but he knew that I was fighting the projects. And so he was a little bit like intimidated. And I remember he said, you know, he introduced himself, he said hello. And I was like, welcome to America, the land of litigation, buckle up. Because I was like, we're not taking this sitting down. Oh. We're not going to just let you come in here and destroy everything. And I think they were not prepared for that because in general, my experience anyway of watching events in Europe is that most people there just kind of lie down and take it. Americans are not like that. And I don't think that the European wind developers really thought about what would happen when they came to the US. I think that they thought everything was the same as in Europe. Well, it's not.
Yeah.
Our legal system's different. Mm-hmm. Our mentality is different. And so when they came to the United States, you know what? We fought. And I don't think that they expected the fight that they would have. I don't think that they expected the kickback that they would have even from say the Trump administration or others, you know, which has now come, you know, but I think they didn't expect the amount of local opposition or people that would organize themselves. Like, God bless these groups who have organized themselves up and down the East Coast. Like, kudos to them. They were just regular people who were like, you know what? We're not taking this. And we in the fishing industry had been fighting for a long time. And then to have other groups kind of come and start to fight was a real breath of fresh air.
Oh my gosh.
Because, you know, for a long time, we were the only ones screaming into the wind here going like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing.
Is anyone out there? Is anyone listening?
You know, but now there are citizens who said, you know what? No, we're not letting you do this where we live. And they banded together. They fundraised, they organized themselves, they set up nonprofits, they started lawsuits, they started information campaigns. You know, one of these groups I'm a board member of Protect Our Coast, New Jersey. They were one of those groups, you know, and I mean, there are groups up and down the coast that have now organized themselves and started fighting. And I don't think that the wind developers expected that. Now, they still thought that they would easily run us over, right? I think they were almost like, oh, like these are like little mosquitoes, just kind of, you know, flick them away type of thing. Right.
Yeah. We'll wear them down.
Right. But you know what? We didn't. And I tell people all the time, there's one way you win, and that is you refuse to lose. You keep coming and you keep coming and you keep coming. And so you have to do that. But regular people have to actually do something.
Yeah.
You know, in the United States, we are, you know, we're a country of we the people. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, we the people have to make this happen. It's not the professionals. It's not like they will do something. Who's they? You know, well, someone will do something. No, it's on you. You have to do something. If you want to take your country back, if you want to take your oceans back, you have to do something because it's your responsibility. You're the people who live here. It's your country. And I think that I do not think that the wind developers were prepared for that. I don't think that they were prepared for that or the Trump election, because Donald Trump is the best, and he issued an executive order on day one. Promises made, promises kept. He promised us in Wildwood, New Jersey, at a rally, that he would issue an executive order on day one to stop offshore wind development, and he did.
Yeah.
And you know, Unfortunately, it's been difficult in stopping projects that have already been started. The Trump administration did stop the Revolution Wind project. A court
Listen to this.
re-overturned
we need to stop it before it starts.
You have to stop it before it starts. And, you know, I'm still hoping, I've not given up hope that those projects that you know, they will be able to stop because they were illegally permitted, like 100%. And I want those projects out. I want all the sticks out. I want everything out.
He hates windmills.
He does.
We call them turbines, technical word, but anyway, that's a wrap from us. All I can say is you heard it from this incredible, amazing woman who's been fighting this for 10 years. Australia, WA, get off your backsides. Those that can make it to the symposium, get there tomorrow. It's trybooking.com, and it's the ugly truth about offshore wind. Also, the connection is here through Facebook on Edge Radio Australia. You need to get to the symposium, ask your questions, challenge yourself. Whatever narrative you might have invested in or whatever information you're missing, you are going to get such a big chunk of what the issues are all across a whole spectrum tomorrow night. As Meghan said, we're going to fight. If we don't fight it now, we're going to lose. Thank you so much, Meghan.
Thank you.
I will see you tomorrow night. A lot of you, and we will be broadcasting this later at a later time. Thank you.